Hey kids, so the COVID done hit hard, which I love. This is for Daryl's ag science and food science, and if things go right, may even be for some of my intro to woods and advanced wood classes too. It's kind of old school, gang. It's something that I grew up with. Talking to Daryl, he's had the same. Paul's here with us too, and we're going to kind of just throw this together for you. We're going to can some chicken. It's old school. It's how chicken was preserved hundreds of years ago. I think the first pressure canner came out in 1586, 1587, and they've gotten a lot better since then. We have a brand new one here. It's going to be its maiden voyage. We haven't used this one yet, but what we're going to do is we're going to can some chicken, and then we also have a nice piece of beef there, and that's another thing that we're going to can up, and we can put those in the pressure canner at the same time because they're sealed up in jars and don't cross, but we can't use the same boards. That's a cross-contamination thing, so we want to be careful not to do that, okay? This is probably one of the easiest things to do when it comes to canning. People for the longest time have had a large fear of pressure canners. The technology for these has become so good. They're so safe to use now. I strongly encourage you. They're spendy. The average, I think this one's right around $135, $145. And that's, but it's a quality, it's an All-American canner. It's a very good one. Here's what we did. We bought a 10-pound bag of quarters of chicken. And this is what a quarter of chicken looks like, gang. This is the thigh, and this is the leg or the drumstick, okay? And what we did was we washed them all out, and if there was any extra feathers we kind of watch, or if there's a little bit of cavity lung right in here, we take and clean all of that out, okay? It's a real, and then if there's any extra pieces of fat or something, we're just gonna simply trim that off, and we toss that into our scrap bin. And then to bone these or split them, you just find, you can feel where the joint is there, and you just cut through it, and so you kind of have a couple of small pieces. So really that's it for the prep. We want to get rid of any excess skin. If there's a lot of extra skin, like say on this drumstick here, this leg, I'm going to trim that off. We don't want all of that in there, okay? And then what we do is we're going to put 1 teaspoon of sea salt or canning salt into each jar, into a quart jar, or you would put, if you were doing if you were doing pints, you'd put a half teaspoon in there. It does not have an effect on the preserving. It's strictly for flavoring. Just the pressure of the canner and the intense heat, and when it's sealed, is how the meat is preserved. But we just use a little bit of salt for flavoring, and that's it. I've seen other recipes where you can add bell peppers and onions and things like that. There's one with rosemary, there's one with thyme. I would recommend not doing that unless you've done it a few times, because you get a little carried away, and some of those spices and herbs can get really intense when you put them in your jar. So add them afterwards, but a little bit of salt is just great, okay? And so that's it. Again, and as far as cost, I have plenty of fruit jars, gang. I've had jars. I think I've had a relationship with fruit jars my entire life. So we've always had fruit jars in our house. So that, if you're going to buy fruit jars, they'll cost you a little bit, but you can use them over and over and over again. You can even reuse your rings. Mine are beat up. We just clean them up with some steel wool. These have probably been canned 20, 30 times they've been used, for all I know. You will have to buy new lids every time. We have them soaking in hot water. That makes that rubber gasket, gang, makes it real soft, so it squeezes down on the top of the jar, and you get a good seal. I do have a couple of friends who have researched this, and they wash theirs, they sterilize them, and they reuse them. And if their thought is, if it holds, the seal holds, why not? I don't want to chance that, because I want to use new every time, because a better chance of knowing it's going to seal with a new one rather than there's a little nick or something in there. And then of course our jars, you always run your finger around the edge there to make sure there's no little chip or something. If you have a chip, the jar won't work because air will leak by that, okay? But it's pretty straightforward stuff. So here we go. I'm not exactly sure how much we'll get into here. We don't want to pack them too full, but we don't want them real loose, so we're going to get just maybe a couple of thighs and a couple of drummies in each one. And then, gang, I sometimes will add a little bit of water, about half full, but you really don't have to. It's going to produce enough juice on its own that it'll still get about half full of that, and that's really what you're looking at. And then for shelf life or how long it lasts, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's sealed up. Nothing's going to happen to it. If the seal pops, then it's no good. But once they're sealed and they stay sealed, there's some real great longevity, which saves you tons of freezer space, so you can can these up. And then you always have pre-cooked meats. It was kind of one of these things back in the day, the pioneers, they didn't have any electricity, or those that did have it was limited. And things like freezers and refrigerators were pretty hard to come by in the rural parts. So they can most everything, and that's kind of what we're showing you here. Okay, gang, so we're just going to start. Daryl can keep that running. I'm going to have Paul, if you want, you can just start packing those in there, take those off, and if you throw a little teaspoon, teaspoon of salt in there, and I'll cut you a couple more of these, and then we're going to go right over to that beef, and we're going to cut that in just a minute too. So, and that we're going to cube up, and we'll show you that's a little bit different, but not a lot. Okay, gang? So just drop them right on down in there, just like, maybe not quite like what they'd see on TV. Yeah, that'd be a good jar right there. Yep. That's a dandy. And then this will get us another jar there. So yeah, let's go with that. So let's go with, I think you got 2 drumsticks and 2 thighs in there?
Yep.
Perfect. That's a good. And so when it comes to what can you do with this stuff, quesadillas, one of my favorites. You can do it with these. Again, I got a little piece here I'm going to trim off. And a big shout out to Amy Stewart, who is not here today. Therefore, we snuck in, but we did ask permission, gang.
Yeah, we did.
We came in and asked Amy if it would be okay if we showed you guys how to can chicken, and she was like very, very much in favor of that. She's very supportive of all these things that we do, gang. So that's just really cool. And thank you, Amy. We'll make sure you get the link sent to you so you can view this too when we send this out. So you can see, gang, it's pretty straightforward to put this together. It goes really quick. Honestly, in the amount of time that it took for me to, excuse me, tell you about this.
Oh, you want to get the oiler on that one?
Oh, yeah. Then I could have probably had these already tossed in, okay? So, hi, ladies, come on in. You want to help can some chickens?
Just saying, I wanted to actually see how you did it.
Oh, well, come on over here.
Come on in.
So, yeah, we're just doing a video for Ag Science and Food Science. What we did, like we said earlier, we picked up 10 pounds of chicken, and we're putting in 2 thighs and 2 legs in each jar with a teaspoon of sea salt or canning salt. This guy has a little bit extra. And we just kind of, we washed them all off to make sure there weren't any extra feathers or anything like that on them. And then we clean them out. And then we just kind of joint those chickens. And we separate the thigh and the leg.
We called it the shinken.
The shankin.
Yeah.
Yeah, the quality stuff. And our company didn't stay very long, guys. Did you notice that? 2, 4, 5. Well, you know what? We're going to have to maybe see if we can
Sneak a few in more in the jar.
Yeah, we may have to. I was trying to hopefully we'd have a.
We might need those 2 jars for the beef.
Yeah. So, but I've got quite a little here. Let's see. That or we.
Well,
can
I might have more jars downstairs.
And we can run another. Well, I've got some more jars there, but honestly, gang, here's the
Oh yeah, we
best,
want to do 7 in a.
Yeah, the
Seven,
best news is we'll fill these up with chicken, and then we'll do some beef after these are done. Yeah. Otherwise, we're going to be filled up here. Okay, so since we're already here,
Yep.
I'll have
Good
Paul
enough.
put that, and that may turn out. That's going to turn out just right. Yeah.
It was either that or I was going to go throw the beef on the grill.
Well, we could do that too. Yeah, and gang, there's no difference to that. Here, I'm just going to tell you with the beef, you simply trim off any excess fat. Yeah, take if there's a bone in that roast, take it out.
Yep.
You just cut it into chunks. I'll say 2-inch is probably the most common, and a teaspoon of salt in the jar. And I'm going to have a little bit. This is at the bottom. I want to rinse that off. And just a teaspoon of salt and. You're set. It's ready to go. So
Looks good.
oh, I missed that one.
I think we'll. Well, we may as well get the chicken all prepped and ready to go into the canner.
Yep.
And then get that going, and then we'll come back and I'll do a separate video on the.
Yeah, that's
the beef.
That's a great idea. So yeah, so here, gang, I'll just have Paul do that, and then, gang, again, raw chicken it's safe, but you got to use common sense. You want to make sure that you wash up when you're done. Don't cross-contaminate. Chicken has to be cooked. You know, beef is one of those things. You know, there's some people say you can. They have the stuff called tiger meat. You can eat beef raw. You can get away with a rare steak, but not rare chicken. Okay,
Yep.
so we want to make sure you understand that. Well, there. So now, gang, all we really have to do is we're going to take these, and I need one paper towel. Let me dry my hands first. One of the things that I try to always remember to do is, and let me just see if Miss Amy has any right here. I'm actually looking for a little bit of vinegar. And the reason I wanted to have some vinegar, no, that's okay. I would have used a little bit of vinegar, gang, to wipe the lids or the ring here, because when we put those in, so I'm just going to dampen a paper towel, and then we just take it and I'm going to wipe that all the way around. And what I'm trying to do is make sure I don't have any fat on there, because if that gets slippery,
Won't seal.
it won't. Yeah, then it won't seal, and then you wind up eating chicken. Okay. There you go. There. So, and gang, over here, we'll show you in a minute when we load these up. And I'll lid them and rig them, and I'll have Paul stack them in there. We put 2 quarts of water in the canner.
How tight do you put those on, Ben?
I snug them. You know, you don't want to wrench it down, you know, as hard as you can. It's finger tight, they say, but I give it a good snug. Okay.
Yep.
And then the trick there, when these come out, you want to make sure that you don't tighten the band when they come out. At whatever they are here, they have to stay like that for 24 hours, and then we can take those bands off. Okay. So when you go to store these, after you know that the seals are good, and we'll show you that, and just when I get to the last one, I'm going to show you what we're going to look for. Then after 24 hours, you can take the bands off, but not the lid, obviously, and clean these up. And like I said, sometimes I add a little bit of vinegar to the water too. That keeps your jars from getting kind of, if you have calcium in your water, it keeps them from getting streaky or kind of cloudy looking.
Yep.
But you know, if you don't have it, just wipe them down real well. And guys, so on the last one, if you can look here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like a bump right here in the middle of this. It's called the dome. That's our seal. That's what we're really after. And what's going to happen, I'll pull this on. That's tight. We'll put this under pressure, and as the steam and basically the air leave the jar, it'll suck all of that air out. It'll pull it down so hard that that thing pulls down, and it'll make a distinct ping sound, and hopefully we'll get to record that for you guys. Then you know it's sealed. Then it's going to be safe to eat. Just warm. This gets very, very hot. Okay. Now here's the deal. We have cold water in there, and we put cold chicken in there in a cold fruit jar, which is called cold packing. So we could have changed that a little bit. We could have heated up some water and had this already on the burner, but we wanted to start right from the get-go for you guys. So here we go. I have to see where I think there should be an arrow to line it up.
Yeah, there.
Right there.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, right
Yep.
there.
There. Okay? And gang, so then here's what we're going to do. Get that a little bit turned.
Might have to lift it.
Maybe.
It's got to drop down and
It's kind of a... Oh, hold on. So I got to get here, and then we turn it. Get it all the way.
There,
Then
now
we
we-
turn
now
that.
you got
Yeah,
it.
There's
Yep.
a safety latch, an
Right.
extra latch.
We might be off kilter a little bit here.
Okay. Did I get too far ahead of you?
Yeah, this one is down tight. There,
You get
that did it.
Okay, cool. Yep. So like at mine at home, I just have a locking lid where you just spin the lid on and it pulls it down. This one's a little bit, but this doesn't have a gasket gang. That was the other thing I was going to notice that.
Yeah.
You guys, there's no. There. Now, this is our weight, and if you can see that, there's 5, 10, 15. That's the pounds. How much pounds of pressure to lift that up? We're going to do it at 10 pounds, but we don't put that on right away. We're going to set that here. We're going to put this on the stove. Let me get this revved up here. We put it on high, and we're going to watch this gauge, okay? And when it gets to about 220, 228, that would be at 5 pounds of pressure, and then we want to get it about 280 or 240, I guess. That's 10 pounds of pressure. So our goal is to, this is really nice. I just have one at home that has the weight on it, and so I have to adjust it by how much that rattles. And you would want this weight to rattle, and we'll explain that later on once it starts, once or twice every minute, okay? You don't want it constantly rattling. If you have it constantly rattling, honestly, you're too hot. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna wind up pulling all that moisture out of your jars, and that can crack your jars, okay? Or it'll pull so much fat up to the top that they won't get a seal on that. So that's it. We're gonna let this run until it comes up to temperature, and that should probably take 10, 15 minutes. And what we like to do is once we get to that temperature, we'll let some steam come off here. They'll tell you to let that steam off for about 10 minutes. But once you have a good flow of steam, I put it about after 5 minutes, I drop my weight on there and let it do its thing. And then it takes a couple of minutes to rebuild that pressure, and then that'll start rattling. And then all we do is just regulate our heat. We just watch that. We don't let it get too high or too cold. It's kind of, you have to be around. That's the neat thing about doing it, gang. You don't get the option to go and mow the lawn. So if you're doing this in the summertime and you're canning other things, you have to stay relatively close to this. I like to sit in the backyard, and I can be doing other processing. Maybe I'm blanching and freezing or doing something like that while this is going. I do most of my stuff outside during the heat of the summer, just to keep some of the heat out of the house. But nonetheless, that's it. We're just going to let this come up to heat, and we'll come back. Once it starts to rattle, and then we'll time it out. About 75 minutes, gang. This has to pressure cook. Okay.